This is 22 days ago, at the release of the Snow Car. I realized the Snow Car is worse on keyboard. I started playing with it on analog keyboard. For some context, I bound my keyboard in a certain way, and I asked Nadeo, let's get some rules on this. This is me from the past. This is the analog curve. This is the default one, the linear one. This one goes from 0 to 100% steering. Setting one that goes from 0 to 60%, which is basically the no sliding numbers. This is all you need. One that looks something like this, where the more you press, the more you steer. This is what keyboard players need. And I think controller players can just use the same with DX Tweak. And I really hope Nadeo considers this. The Snow Car is fun, but it's utterly like impossible to compete if you're on a keyboard. Analog, here, this is my statement from 22 days ago. You can clip this and send it to Nadeo. Hey Nadeo, I'm Wirtual. From now on, I will be playing with analog keyboard on stream in full transparency with an analog keyboard that looks like this. I'll be mapping it from 0% steering to 60%, and I really hope we can get a clear ruling on whether this is allowed or not. I hope you can take a stance and tell us what we should do. This is what I did. I bound my keyboard from 0 to 60%, and I drove some records with it. Most notably, I got the world record on one of the snow campaign maps called Slippy Snow. Using this method, where I bound my keyboard from 0 to 60, so I could never exceed 60%, but I only used the values in between 0 and 60. I used around 34, 35%, 43% in this next turn to get Snow Car no slides, because this is faster. And though you can get close with the regular in-game action keys, you still are too far away to ever beat this world record on regular action keys alone. You need analog input. And for keyboard players, this really sucks, because this game has been balanced enough to the point where you can always compete on a keyboard up until now, basically. And it's probably gonna get worse with the rally car and even maybe with the desert car. I did this as a form of protest. I called for changes. I wanted Trackmania to make rules about it. And I also said in this stream, are you gonna add something to help keyboard players? Here, this. I'm gonna take a stand. This might cause drama, but I want a clear message. So if I get banned, oh well, but I'm gonna keep playing like this until we get some answers. I was also prepared to face the consequences for this, because I wanted some answers. Nadeo just made a huge Twitter post talking about this, and we'll get into this, but I think we should start from the very beginning. 2 days ago, I received an email, and this is the following email. Hello, Wirtual TM. We have detected recent activity on your Ubisoft account that is in breach of our code of conduct. This behavior is not tolerated, as it has a negative impact on our players' community. Repetition of such activity or other violations of our code of conduct may lead to further sanctions, including bans. This warning was issued after careful review of relevant evidence. Please keep in mind that you are responsible for any activity on your Ubisoft account. You can help us maintain a safe and online environment by reviewing our code of conduct, supplemental to the terms of use. So they sent me a warning. They sent me a warning for this behavior, and I wanted to read up on the code of conduct. As it turns out, the code of conduct, if you click it in this email, takes you to a non-existent page, because the Ubisoft forums have moved to Discord. And after asking Nadeo about this, I was led to another forum page, which is this one. And if you click the code of conduct for Trackmania here, you get basically just this super vague, non-specific to Trackmania, but mostly like a general Ubisoft agreement, like, do play fair and encourage others to do so. Call out cheating by using our reporting features. Luckily, everybody, they finally wrote their code of conduct on the Trackmania documentation page. And the rule that I broke the one in the disciplinary policy. Cheating, modding, and hacking. Let's see if we find that one. Player is running in a modified or otherwise unauthorized version of the game client or a third-party software which provides any sort of unfair advantage or causing detriment to players' experience. So I broke this rule with my method. But that's kind of okay, because I really wanted to hear, is this within the rules or not? And if we read Nadeo's statement now, they say the following. Late November, Wirtual had a gray area regarding the use of external tools to set custom analog profiles to have better controls of the Snow Car with his analog keyboard. This is a complex situation. We would like to clarify what's allowed or not. As we said back in August 2022 in a long message about custom steering keys, the Trackmania Code of Conduct prohibits players to use external tools to gain an unfair advantage. We already knew this, but they also said in the same statement that they did not consider peripheral software, which can be used to calibrate or enhance your device, to be an external tool. These are things like the Thrustmaster software. This can be your analog keyboard software. This can also be your Xbox Elite controller remapping software where you can set custom analog profiles. However, using an external tool to readjust a gaming device to set a custom range, limiting the steering from 0 to less than 100, for example, is not allowed in Trackmania. This is not considered as a classic peripheral calibration, but as an exploit to gain precision in a specific situation. We know that some of the top of the range gaming devices offer the possibility to switch the joystick sensitivity curve at any time, and this is currently not allowed. It's not part of the Trackmania philosophy to equip yourself with the latest cutting-edge tools to be able to perform well. Trackmania must remain an easy-to-pick-up racing game. We are currently working on an action keys update to allow players to have better control of their cars and avoid high-end gaming devices being a requirement to perform well in Trackmania. These changes will not go into effect for the winter 2024 season, as we need more time to work on this new feature. In the meantime, limiting custom range with an external device to something less than 100% at the maximum steering is not allowed. Players using these kinds of techniques will be sanctioned. Thank you for your understanding. Please remain respectful, blah, 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 blah. That's the statement. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have made some progress. They are working on an action key update to allow players to have better control of their cars. This is amazing. This was not for nothing. I will also say, I think the communication here could still be better. We still don't know, and they're leaving a lot of room for gray area in their descriptions. For example, limiting the steering range from 0 to less than 100 is not allowed. But what if you then do, instead of having a curve that goes from 0 to 100, what if you have one that, does go from 0 to 100 like this, starts at 0, goes to 100, but you have a massive plateau? You could even have several plateaus on other devices. It could be better written to allow us to understand exactly what is allowed and not. Are you allowed to have a custom analog curve at all? What do they, because this would, achieve the same thing. That is something I think they should address, because, it could even be less aggressive. Let's say you just want, is this allowed? This is one of the default presets. Is this allowed? Is this allowed? These are not violent curves, if you will, but they're still not the default 0 to 100. These exist not on just my keyboard. These exist on Xbox devices. These exist on Thrustmaster devices. And they also talked about some top-range gaming devices offer the possibility to switch the joystick sensitivity curve at any time. And this is currently not allowed. This means that you change the sensitivity mid-run, is how I read this. I do not read this as you cannot change your sensitivity curve at any time, because they want to allow classic peripheral calibration. You see how vague this is? We do not consider peripheral software which can be used to calibrate or enhance your device to be an external tool. This is an extension and part of your peripheral of choice. Do you understand? It's still too vague. The reason I think it's important is because it's such a big advantage. Not just on keyboard, but on controller, on steering wheel. It's such a big advantage if you can have a curve that looks different than the 0 to 100, straight line, when you play with the snow car. There needs to be a clear ruling. I don't like that there's a gray area. I received a warning for this. For stating publicly what I'm gonna do, and they said in that email, repetition may lead to further sanctions, including bans. So doing something that is very publicly asking for an answer gets me a warning. Whereas if I, and as many others might do in this game, just use these tools without being public about it, you receive no punishment at all, because it's very hard to trace down. It is very hard to detect anyone having a slightly different analog curve unless they're public about it. I think getting a punishment for this is really weird. It's like kind of shooting the messenger. Like, if you want people to be public about what they use, then you shouldn't take sanctions against people that come forth and say, this is how I'm playing. Can I get an answer? Is this allowed or not? I also feel a lot of people will say, oh, you should have been banned. I feel it's actually the opposite of what people think. People think I'm somehow above the law in this game, that Nadeo are too scared to ban me or give me punishments. But I often feel like if I do something on stream, it gets punished much worse than if someone else does the same thing, because there's so much of a spotlight on whatever I do at any given time. Cheating, modding, and hacking. If a player runs a modified or otherwise unauthorized version of the game client or third-party software which provides any sort of unfair advantage, we're causing detriment to a player's experience. If we're reading their TOS word for word, then I would like to show you a few examples. Starting with the ultimate full-speed trainer. This is an Open Planet plugin, and the person who made this drove several records on the leaderboards with it. This is the most broken OpenPlanet plugin to ever exist. And he, in this video, set 2 public records. What this tool does, by the way, is it shows how he should speed slide. So he does not need to think about speed slides. As he mentioned, there's one in camera 3 here. He just looks at this and adjusts the steering to get to the green lines. So this is a hugely broken tool. And he sets a record, and this is on the public leaderboard. It's not on the leaderboards offline. This is literally on the leaderboards. This is literally on the leaderboards.
If that's not you,
how about if you hear someone argue a case, you listen to their case, and then you make your answer. Here he's using it. The final time, 4272, 4272. On this map. So this guy used a third-party tool that he developed himself that gives him perfect speed slide information, and then just used it on the leaderboards. And 3,000 people saw this and thought, okay, cool, no problem. No warning, no nothing, no anything. And he used it on the other maps too, even if he improved his records later. That's one case. Then there's this case. Scrappy, also on stream, has used custom speed slide plugins, homemade. He is playing a map that requires speed sliding, and it's meant to train your speed slides. And then he figures out, okay, let me just enable my own speed slide plugin to change the colors of the skid marks depending on how good the speed slide is. So usually, speed sliding looks like this in game. It's just gray, and you have to know the overlap for the different speeds. If you skip ahead a bit here, he enables a plugin.
Since this map is used to be played with a helper, we are activating our own helper.
And his argument is that the map is supposed to be played with a helper, so he can activate his own helper. And this is a unsigned OpenPlanet plugin. It's not official in OpenPlanet. No one else has access to this. It is just him and a few others that have it downloaded, have it sent between them. Now if you look at the skid marks, they will change color depending on how good it is. Red is bad, orange is okay, and green is perfect. And then he speed slides on these maps much better than he would otherwise. You just have to look at the color, and you get perfect information. Per Nadeo's rules, this is also not allowed. You're using unsigned plugins for OpenPlanet. They allow OpenPlanet, but this is a custom plugin. This is literally custom scripts. And they have not issued any statement about it, and they have not made any public rules about it, or taken any sanctions against it. And then he also uses this later on a map which does not have any visual helper at all. It is just a map where you play against AI time that's the GPS, but you have to hold a speed slide. So this was streamed. Then this video was seen by 200,000 people, and nothing happened. So what I'm trying to say is, I feel like there's usually a spotlight on if I do something, but there's still a lot of things that don't adhere to Nadeo's TOS that still go unnoticed. And I'm not trying to say, oh, Scrappy needs to get a warning or a ban. I'm not trying to say Sergeant Bluebird needs to get a warning or a ban. But I'm just saying these things happen. And it often feels like if you ever come forward and actually try to highlight this issue, you get punished for it rather than like, oh, let's talk about it. Another case I want to mention is a guy who found an exploit in Trackmania last year. When he brought this up publicly, he got told by someone at Nadeo that they replied with a vague ban/legal threat if he didn't take his posts about it down. This was a big exploit in Trackmania, and instead of trying to fix the issue, they apparently just threatened him to ban or sue him. So it feels like there's a problem where I would like to, again, try to bring up where's the rules, you know? If I now try to argue for this to get a more clear ruling, I feel like instead of getting a good answer, I'm just going to get another ban threat or potentially even a suspension for a while. It's almost like you're discouraged to ask this question, like where this curve should go. If they don't want people to ask these questions, then they should be way more clear in their rules and also their application of their rules. I think they should add customization in-game which allows this to happen in-game so everyone has access to it. And maybe add back action keys as they said they might, or rework them. That is the 2 fixes to this, long term. This whole drama could be avoided if Wirtual just played pad. It really couldn't, because it's not just about me, but it's about all the other keyboard players too. My post had a great impact. Nadeo are actually taking this seriously now and helping keyboard players to make the game more level. And even better, also helping the game be more level no matter what type of keyboard you have. Whether it's an analog one or a cheap laptop keyboard. If anyone from Nadeo hears this, can we get some specific rules on what type of curve is allowed? And are you going to add anything like this in-game? Is it going to be just a straight curve? Is it going to be a curve that could look like this? Can you make one that looks like this with a plateau? Can you make one that has a different curve opposed to a straight line like this? Because you say 0 to 100, but it's not too easy to understand. And I also really hope that for future things like this, it's possible to bring up the issue without getting punished for it. That you should be able to ask a question. It's just going to lead to less people being honest about it. Overall, though, I'm quite hopeful. I think the game is going to get to a better state. I think Trackmania will hopefully continue to be a game that is playable on both keyboard and controller in the future. It's very important that Nadeo, I think, hear these complaints and take them seriously. Otherwise, a huge portion of the player base is left out.